Well, abortions are now returning to the state of Missouri, months after Missourians passed Amendment 3 and a judge's ruling.
But some pro-life lawmakers in Jefferson City are still fighting to preserve life. WGEM's Missouri Capitol Bureau reporter Hannah Falcon asked elected leaders about the new ruling.
Abortion is a topic that continues to divide Missouri lawmakers. And rather than settling anything, this weekend's ruling seems to have only lit a new fire in the fight over abortion access here at the state capitol.
I'm very happy that women are now allowed to get the reproductive health care that they need.
Democratic Representative Emily Weber celebrates the Jackson County judge's ruling allowing Planned Parenthood to resume abortions. But others mourn the ruling.
I don't think it would have passed had it not been contained that misleading ballot language.
Missouri's new lieutenant governor shares the view many anti-abortion protesters that Amendment 3 was not well worded.
Now that the court has spoken on that, do you think that that is the final word?
No, I think Amendment 3, it was a very misleading ballot initiative that was presented to the Missourians. I think it needs to be repealed and replaced.
Whether it's another vote, another bill, or another lawsuit, Weber does not see an end to the fight over abortion here in Jefferson City.
We will never stop the back and forth on the issue of reproductive health care, what that looks like, abortion. I believe that this fight will always continue.
One bill would let Missourians vote on abortion again. It was discussed in a House committee hearing that lasted late into the night about 2 weeks ago. Since then, there has been no further action, but Senate and House leadership expressed a renewed drive to fight abortion access today. Reporting in Jefferson City, I'm Hannah Falcon, WGEM News.